All right, everybody, it's your man Joe Clair here from the Bowie Center for Performance Arts, and in an effort to let everybody know what's going on good at the Bowie Center for Performance Arts, I am sitting down with some of the movers and shakers that are coming through, and today we are joined by the mind, the man, the driving force behind POOLED. It is the brother Moses T. Alexander. Hey, Moses.
What's going on, Joe? How are you, man?
I'm good, man. How's everything?
Life is good. Life is really good, man. I'm glad to be coming home.
Beautiful. So tell everybody first where you're from.
Okay, I'm originally from Long Island, New York, and I lived in the DC, Maryland area for nearly 12 years. I lived there from 99 to 2010, working in politics and education and communications. Professor, mayor's office.
Well, you know, we're going to say, well, what part of the city? What part? What hood?
Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, all right.
You know what hood you were in.
Listen, my very first job, I'll never forget it. Gladys Schultz, I see your Anacostia shirt. My very first job was at Berry Farms.
Gotcha.
That summer, doing Parks and Rec there. But I also worked in the mayor's office under Williams and Fenty in communications, and then was in community affairs, the library, Parks and Rec, and then also taught at Prince George's Community College. So I had a lot of things going on, man.
Got you. But you still ain't tell us what part you lived in.
Oh, okay. So I lived in Northeast DC.
All right, boom. Okay.
I lived in Northeast, and then I also lived in Prince George's County. I lived in Bowie, where I'm coming back, and I also lived in Landover. So yeah, man.
Got you. Both of those places are very near. You know, I'm sitting in Bowie now, and Landover is another hood that I claim. Well, let's get into what brings you back, and that's the play POOLED. 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 My Prince George's County enunciation sounds like pooled, but it's POOLED. POOLED. So tell everybody first about this. Give everybody sort of an overview about the play.
Okay, so POOLED is based on the pool of Bethesda in the Bible, where you have all manner of sick people there. But I've extended that metaphor to physical, not only physical sickness, but also mental, emotional. What about sickness in your family? What about spiritual sickness? What about sexual brokenness? Like, we get into it. And so, Joe, if I really knew everything going on in your life,
right,
and you knew everything going on in my life, if there was a chance for healing, because the story says an angel comes down, troubles the water, and whoever gets in first gets their healing. If I knew your story and you knew my story and we had that opportunity, is it possible that you would trade your chance for complete healing and give it to me? And that is the major question.
Got you.
Man.
So in this play, from what I understand, there is a point where our hero, has to grapple with, is what's going on with me as bad as this next guy?
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
And so if I'm assuming correctly, it gives everybody sort of a chance to say maybe the grass is not as green over there as I thought. And maybe I better keep my own grass.
Correct. And maybe when I look at what I've had to go through, whatever trauma, whatever brokenness, whatever, maybe there is someone else who's worse off than I am. And maybe they need it. Maybe their loss is greater than mine. Maybe their trauma is greater than mine. Maybe they need a healing that's greater than mine. And maybe mine is not as bad. Now, I think that's a wonderful human question.
Yeah.
And some people might watch it and be like, nah, if I get my chance, if it's between Mo and Joe, Mo, you better take your chance. But then Joe might say, well, listen, when I understand all of Mo's story, I can wait for the next chance. And I think it's a wonderful commentary on us.
Got you. You spoke about mental, spiritual, sexual and all those other things, you know that mental health is huge right now. It's a hot button topic in the African American community, and
Yes.
for a number of reasons. One, because it's long overdue.
Yeah.
You know, so is that sort of why you bought this play out now? Is it why we're doing this now? You know, explain why you're doing this right now.
I think that's a great question. So I've been doing, you know, Iyanla says, I did my work. I've been doing my soul work and dealing with any number of things for a number of years. Okay. So in my own life, that is sexual violation. That is being molested. And so for years, I've done that work, right? But go to the greater question. In our community, in the Black community, right? If we go back to our enslavement, all the trauma that happened, were there any, you saw your child hung, sold, were there any mental health professionals there to guide you through that? Through Jim Crow, and through slave codes and Black codes and Jim Crow and Reconstruction. I'm going out of order. But when were there times for Black men, Black women, Black families, fathers and sons, fathers, to talk about the things that we were going through individually and also the things that were going on in our community? Also, we come from a culture that says what happens at home stays at home. What happens at the church stays at church. Right. And so I think the nowness of it is based on close to 20 years. My first book came out in 2004. It's 20 years of doing this work saying, hey, we need to, there are things that we've gone through in our families that we've got to admit. And so no amount of religiosity, no amount of what it may look like on a Sunday morning stops us from having ailing parents. And how do you deal with being a primary caretaker? None of what we do on Sunday mornings takes us away from the fact that your marriage is broken and your husband and your wife are out there sleeping around the town and everybody knows it. What about children? Everybody knows that you got to have sibling someplace on the other side. No amount of religion and dressing up takes that impact away. And so what the play does is say, listen, whether it is a sexual abuse, a physical abuse, domestic violence, whether it is the verbal abuse, or whether it is just the secrets, why don't we have a collective exhale? Why don't we have a collective Me Too, so that God has a space to enter and to heal? And I firmly believe that the cancers and the high blood pressures that impact our community are because mentally we are still wrestling with not only genetic predispositions, we're still wrestling with things that happened generations ago. Like when you look at the research, some of that trauma changes genes. And so I think the nowness comes from, for me, a place of I want our communities to heal inside out and not to dress up.